What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. This word license is going to be the end of me because it lets me outline videos. Convenient if you have bunches of ideas lined up, but it also makes the flow a little rickety because I'm not finding my way through it. Regardless, more corporate lessons learned. This time focusing on corporate quotes leadership. Now, the first thing you need to know about corporate leadership, and I'm guessing leadership in general, is if you're in a leadership position, leading is the last thing you'll be doing. You execute your superior's commands and make it look like the commands are coming from you. You keep the actual commanders anonymous. Just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you are in charge. Everybody answers to somebody. But you also aren't just operating on behalf of your superiors in this way. You also negotiate on behalf of your subordinates, and you make it seem like the demands are yours, not your subordinates. You keep your subordinates, the ones making the demands, anonymous. The people above you control you, the people below you control you. I don't know how. I have no idea how leadership or leading, that's such the wrong word. You are a two-way buffer. You have chains on your neck going up, you have chains on your neck going down. And your other responsibility, primary responsibility, is taking the blame and the heat for other people. You are a thermal clip from Mass Effect. When the system is about to overheat, you will be expelled to reduce heat and create breathing room for your superiors and your subordinates. Never get too comfortable, never take it too personally. Always remember what you're here to do, which is to be a sacrificial lamb when the time comes. Whenever you hate a CEO in the news or something, remember that CEO is answering to people above and below. It's never just them, but it's convenient to make it look that way, so when something goes wrong, everyone has one person to blame. Why do these CEOs get into these PR disasters and then resign or get fired, but then immediately find another job? Because they're there to take the heat. By that same token, understand your value. You don't need to squeeze your organization for what you're worth and more, but also don't take anything less than what you're worth. You need you need to be ready for when everyone turns on you, but you can also delay that somewhat. You need to ensure you have enough money, dirt, records, letters of recommendation, certifications, work padding out your portfolio to get by and get into another position when you get canned, sacrificed. Because when this moment comes, you will have no allies. Meaning, gather everything you can, everything you'll need now. That includes goodwill. Get letters of recommendation. Now, the next primary point is don't become too emotionally invested in your organization's affairs. Do for the people you're doing for and watch what happens. If you get emotionally invested, you're going to have more of an opinion than you're already going to have. Don't do that. You need to be detached enough to just follow orders. And when you just follow orders, not only will you do your job better, but also you'll pick up on some things. This hell issue I've been dealing with, the hostage taking Sphinx. At first, I thought it was a bad idea to force the issue. Then I thought it was about teaching a lesson in a petty but important precedent setting way. I'm realizing now, because things have escalated, that is not the case. It was never about teaching a lesson or setting a precedent. And it certainly wasn't about trying to get what I thought we wanted. I respect Slim, the guy I answer to mostly, enough, and I have enough emotional detachment just to do as he says. And I am seeing now, after a bit of time, why he did what he did. Even though at the time, when this first kicked off, I thought it was petty, thought it was a bad idea. It was calculated. The Sphinx is nasty, lying, careless, sometimes abusive, but this entire time, sporadically. You know what the Sphinx is, but it's hard to pin anything to it because it's more like, or the way the Sphinx operates, is more like a low, difficult, nasty pulse than an explosion. I'm realizing forcing this issue was bait, and the Sphinx bit it hard. What we're witnessing is an explosion, and an explosion is grounds for action. This whole issue was bait to get the Sphinx to give us a reasonable excuse to do what we've known we should have done for a long time. But now we have clear, immediate justification. And this was clever. I knew the Sphinx was going to be difficult when we forced the issue. I didn't realize it was going to set off this chain of events. And it was, maybe it wasn't calculated. I think it was. Backing up to this primary point, we'll get more into what we just discussed a little later. I feel like I'm at an age and a point in my life I should be learning how to take charge. But I'm realizing what I'm actually learning, the stage I'm actually at, is keeping my mouth shut and observing. And that can be confusing when you think you are a keep your mouth shut and observe person, but I think what you're actually doing is keeping your mouth shut and observing and thinking a lot about what you think and what you want. Learning just to keep your mouth shut and observe, watch and learn, it's weird that this is a skill. Be like Willard or Tom Hagen. Focus on following orders and watching other people's stratagems unfold, and you'll learn a lot. Now, others' decisions are never going to be perfect, and many people are incompetent, but never underestimate anyone, especially if you think they're flawed. They are flawed, but possessing flaws does not mean you can or should count them out. And little tangent before we move on to the next, not larger point, but sub-point. This is one of the reasons I think practicing unjustifiable actions is important. Something that seems totally unjustifiable right now from your point of view might turn out to be perfectly reasonable and the correct action later. You need to practice your ability to be willing to do anything without adequate justification, especially from your point of view, I mean. Now, the next sub-point is older people are strange. Although I think this applies, or this idea applies, or can apply to anybody. Age does not create a universal standard of wisdom or perfection people either reach or they don't. Instead, age creates opportunities for specialization. Imagine some dope you went to high school with. That super dope probably will never learn anything on a wider or narrower scale. They probably won't even come close to this weird idea of wisdom in old age. But they will, by necessity as they age, develop a number of specializations. Just because a person never learned how to manage money or never learned how to deal with relationships and has 12 divorces, absolutely not someone you want life advice from necessarily, doesn't mean that person has not learned how exactly to game tax laws or how to deal with law enforcement in the perfect way. I'm reminded of this video of this meth head dude gaming the cops perfectly and getting away with it. I can't remember his name, but he actually has a YouTube channel. He talks about this stuff. An older or even just mature person who seems like they reached their age learning nothing, stupid, they probably are stupid, but they also almost certainly know some specialized shit. And let me be clear here, I'm not saying my boss is stupid. I'm saying don't discount or underestimate people based solely on what you think of them, or even what they are. Some idiot will shock you with a specialty, and you want that surprise to be on your side, not against you. And you don't want it to be a complete surprise. You need to know people, regardless of what you think of them, or regardless of what their status would seem to be, they have powers they will whip out for you or on you. You don't need a good or totally functioning brain for your jaws to snap shut good. And you might be able to learn from dealing with these specialties when they come out. Do your job, keep your thoughts and opinions to yourself, stay detached, and watch people. Watch what they do and learn from them. And in that same way, some advice about advice. Once you've achieved a specialization, especially with age, never, ever make the mistake of thinking achieving your specialization equals achieving that general level of wisdom or ability or power or whatever. Firstly, that universal standard doesn't exist, but secondly, don't overestimate yourself. Review yourself soberly. You have achieved a specialization. A specialization is not general perfection. When you overestimate yourself, you'll land yourself in bad spots or try to give advice, and of course that advice will be bad because you know only what you know. What you know might be great, but great in one niche is not great in everything. Now, the third major point. Build yourself up while you are working for your organization. You'll survive better when you make yourself more valuable to your organization and the future organizations you will be working for than when you sacrifice for your organization, because you won't be with your current organization forever. While you're working, you squirrel away your certifications, your letters of recommendation, work for your portfolio. We mentioned that earlier, but this is really important. It bears repeating. And if you're working for a nonprofit, your organization can serve as a tool for you to write grants and get free training, get paid to improve yourself. And actually, there are some grants sometimes for-profit organizations. Keep your eyes open. Always get as much training and certifications, or as many certifications as you can on your company's or your organization's dime while you're working for them. A fat binder of certifications you earned while on the job or in your own time that you funded using grants you wrote impresses people. Now, depending on the grants you wrote and the certifications you've earned, maybe it shouldn't, but it does. It proves you are a self starter. Now, I just finished a number of courses, and what those courses amount to differs or would differ depending on the person you are appealing to. If the person is looser or more easily impressed or doesn't go strictly by the books, goes by the work, I just finished an entire semester of college. If you or if that person were somebody who goes by the books as more of a hard ass, I earned one course's worth of college credit. Now, one might go further than the other, but both are good. You need to look at your organization and your career as a vehicle with which you can better yourself. To reiterate, you can bring value to your organization in one of two ways. You can better yourself, or you can sacrifice on behalf of the organization. And remember, if you're in a leadership position, you exist to be sacrificed. So when you're making that choice, always choose the one that makes you better. You can take your skills elsewhere. You can't take your sacrifices elsewhere. Now, the next major point is general, but the subpoints are more specific. The major point is stay organized. Buy a pad folio with an integrated clipboard and pockets. I think we've talked about this before, but this is another one that bears repeating. It's great for keeping yourself organized, but there's also a stylish quality to it. And style is very important. Your pad folio with all of your documents and pens and cards serves a purpose, but also makes an impression. You can't go wrong. Buy some kind of filing cabinet or little filing box. I have a cloth folding one with the hanging folders. Great for keeping your own records. You won't realize how much this is helping you until you need it, and then you have everything right there in the exact places. It's also a good place to keep especially confidential information that you dig up while you're working. Now, the next one, I think we've talked about all this stuff before. This one is really important, and it's serving a function that I hadn't thought about before. Keep a daily records file or a work journal file, especially on a tablet you own, nobody else has access to. Or just put it on your phone if need be. But you can get an Android tablet for $60 on Amazon. That's great. Now, in this work journal, you track what you do and when. You track who says what and when they say it. General attitudes, where you put what things, preferably in language only you will understand, etc. Personal record keeping like that, it makes you harder to hurt and more able to stand up to people when they come after you, and they will. Now, the new purpose I'm realizing this serves is journaling like this is a good way to relieve a little bit of stress. I regularly scream things and aggressively pontificate in my work journal. Look at stress or anger or any of these negative emotions like starvation inverted. If you're starving but can't get a big meal, you eat a little here and a little there to keep yourself from dying, even if you can't get that big meal. If you are overstressed and can't afford to take a break, can't afford to melt down, then you vent in little ways here and there to keep yourself from exploding. And an addendum note I put here that ties back into romancing your shadow with this work journal and little stress-relieving methods like this. Let those terrible feelings inside you know you see and care about them. You might not be able to fix them, but you can give them attention and care for them. Your shadow will appreciate the gesture and the effort. And another little addendum, keep a multi-tool and a small tape measure with you at all times. You'd be surprised how often they come in handy in corporate work. The next point, major point, is when someone disrespects, challenges, or attacks you, don't get mad, get professional. You are building a case for yourself and against every other individual you work with every day. If your record of an event, an email or a letter or a recording shows that you lost your shit, that is no longer a clearly viable piece of evidence for you or against someone else, even if they lost their shit. In this instance, the truth or what should happen doesn't matter. All that matters is what you can prove and how you prove it. And keeping your cool can be hard, especially in a high stress environment like this. Keep yourself in check, knowing that their nastiness builds your case. Each time they do something shitty and you stay professional, you're in a better position. They are giving you ammunition voluntarily. Your most dangerous enemies are the ones who stay calm, personable, friendly while they're attacking you. Your killers come with smiles. Beware them, learn to become a smiling killer yourself, but one of the most important and depressing things I've learned from this job is anytime anyone makes you feel good, comfortable, happy, you need to beware that. Be pleasant, be professional, but stay detached, stay suspicious. And for the record, I think most of this stuff applies to real life or in any field as much as it does corporate work. Always be suspicious. Now, smaller point, major point, but smaller point in this vein, you need the arrogance of a wealthy housewife who thinks she can do anything, and the suspicion of a poor McDonald's employee. You need this level of deranged confidence to swing for the fences and do the impossible, or at least swing for the fences and try to do the impossible, with total, unhinged, rabid self-assurance. And you also need the suspicion of someone who is accustomed to being ground by the face against pavement. You need to look at everyone and everything as a potential source of harm in positions to harm you because you're weak. You're vulnerable. You need both of these attitudes at once. You are the worm squirming in the soil, and you are the god who created the earth. Now, the next major point is more thinking about executive mode or the doom drum, because I realized some things about it. So executive mode does not enhance your skills. Instead, it mutes everything trying to distract or disable you. When executive mode comes online, you stop feeling tired, you stop feeling hungry, you stop feeling sad, angry, stressed. You stop hearing anything unrelated to your assignments. And I'm reading this off if you can't tell. Parentheses, probably why, quotes, doom drum music focuses on one dark, thumping, omnipresent beat, close parenthesis, etc. Executive mode doesn't make you better, but it gets everything off your back and gives your accomplishment brain enough breathing room to get shit done. Everything other than the high priority thing you need to do fades into the background, even if that sort of physiologically or psychologically should not be possible. Now, my current theory that I stepped into today on what this is, I think it's your shadow at work. I think your shadow, when you're in this mode, is holding back the demons clawing at you so you have enough focus and time to take the shot. That's why the cooldown period afterward is so miserable. Your shadow has almost no way to vent normally, and that's why it radiates off pressure instead of taking more active measures to deal with the pressure the way your conscious mind might. You pay your shadow back with interest for the service of letting you focus. Now, sometimes we talk about your shadow taking over, and I don't know what we're going to call that. For right now, I'm thinking of it as a shadow override, but executive mode or the doom drum is not that. In an override, your shadow takes the wheel, and you don't really have anything to do with it. In executive mode, your shadow creates enough room for your conscious mind to focus when you really shouldn't be able to. And you can and will melt down if you stay in executive mode too long because you are overtaxing your shadow. Treat yourself and your shadow gently, with appreciation, with consideration. You aren't the only one in your body. Be a kind and considerate, loving partner. And a little bit more thought on it, an addendum. You are asking a significant other to take over your routine problems when you're in executive mode while you focus on a serious problem, critical problem. And that can be okay, but when your routine problems would be serious problems for somebody else, that overwhelms quickly. A way to look at it is if your routine shit or the situation you find yourself in is so bad that it threatens your ability to function at all, that is what you are putting on your shadow while you're in executive mode. If it's terrible for you right now, it's just as terrible, if not worse, for the person you're putting it on. The person kind enough to carry that load for you so you can do what you need to do. Now, there was another major point after this one, or there are a few more major points, but this major point was going to go into stuff we talk about pretty regularly. We'll skip that. The only new one is build your reputation however you can. And don't worry about positive and negative reputation too much. You want your contacts and these circles to know you as someone capable. That's what's most important. Build your capability reputation in any way you can. Now, the next major point is don't expect to, quotes, win. Your career lasts your entire life, and you will find yourself losing in more situations than you find yourself winning. Keep in mind that within the mechanisms of the system, you don't actually have much agency, so don't worry about that too much. Actual winning means the ability to get into other jobs when you need to, based solely on the skills you've accumulated. We keep stressing this because it's important. Improve yourself first, not your organization. If you improve yourself, you'll improve your organization. If you improve your organization, you'll be shit out of luck when it's all over. Become the one who is wanted, not the one who wants. The next major point, keep crackers or Slim Jims or a Slim Jim equivalent nearby. You never know when, in this sort of work, you'll need sustenance but won't be able to get it. Crackers are also very good for nausea. If you vomit in your toilet and need sustenance but can't get away from the job, Crackers are great because they get food back in your system without upsetting your stomach further. Slim Jims are great for protein. Protein is more of an energizer for me, but Slim Jims aren't easy on the stomach. And for now, that's about everything. And although I like keeping these outlines so that I can have videos in the chamber, knock them out later, it is a little ungratifying because finding your way toward the point and then at the end of the video feeling whether or not you got that point is very satisfying. When you do outlines, you don't get that feeling, or I don't get that feeling as much. Stay detached, stay professional, build yourself up, know what you're getting into, never underestimate anyone, and learn from people learn from people you would normally underestimate when they pull out crazy shit, because they will. Also, when you unlock executive mode, understand what it is, what you're doing, the stress you are putting your shadow under, and act accordingly. Be good to all sides of yourself. Your shadow is your greatest ally and your only ally once you connect with it. Treat it well. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.